Fresher/infidelity stories. Sit back and enjoy the stories. Story 1. My wife and I, both late 20s, had our first child together in June. Before he was born, there was a lot of talk about names from different family members on both sides, but the pressure to tell was on my side specifically. We didn't tell a soul what the name would be until our son was born and we had left the hospital. My parents were disappointed when we announced our son's name. My family are very traditional in how they named us. We were each named after grandparents, and that's how they feel everyone should name their kids. My wife's family don't have a tradition when it comes to naming babies. They just name them and go. No fuss or insisting on certain names. But my wife's side tends to favor more uncommon and unusual names. My wife's and my taste tends to lean a lot more to her side than to mine. Which is how we ended up choosing the name Hollis for our son. This was not something my parents liked because they expected our son to be either Jack, my dad, or Parker, my FIL. But I know they were expecting a little Jack to be born. So that added to their reaction. But they quizzed us on our choice to break tradition, and I told them it wasn't a tradition my wife's family used, and we decided we weren't going to have one either. Over the last couple of months, both parents have questioned why, have wanted to discuss other names for future babies. My mom has been the worst by far. She asked why we went with something so unlike the names we have in our family. I told her our family wasn't the only family involved, but that we also didn't take the family tastes into account. We went with what we liked. She pointed out our tastes were a lot like my IL's, and I said yes, but that it wasn't about my IL's and their taste, it was about my wife's and my taste. I told her I was done discussing it, and since that point I now change the topic or end the conversation when she brings it up or refuses to let it go. We had a little naming ceremony on Saturday, and my mom decided she was going to dig in her heels about the name, and she told me we'd picked a stupid name and she hated it. She wanted us to change it and name him Jack or Parker. She told me we had no business breaking a long-held tradition in our family, and there's a reason those traditions are there so foolish people can't name their babies the worst names imaginable. She also said my ILs must be so smug thinking they'll have at least 2 stupidly named grandkids like they had all stupidly named kids. I lost my temper. I told her to shut up and accept that we're not naming our kids like she and Dad named me and my siblings, and I told her she would need to leave and learn to be more respectful because I would not take those insults against my wife or her family lying down. My mom hated being told to shut up, and she said I had no excuse for rudeness to her face. I thought she was crazy when she was rude. AITA though? Story 1.
AITA for refusing to meet my biological mom after in person I signed up for a DNA testing site. I'm a 24M who was adopted when I was 6 years old. I've always felt incredibly lucky because my adoptive parents, who were in their late 20s when they took me in, have been nothing short of amazing. They've loved and supported me as if I were their own flesh and blood, and I've never felt like anything was missing in my life because of being adopted. Growing up, I had very minimal details about my adoption. I know that I was removed from my biological family by social services due to neglect, but nothing specific. I don't remember anything about my life before I was adopted. Recently, out of simple curiosity, I decided to sign up for one of those at-home DNA testing kits. I wasn't looking for a reunion or any deep connection. I just wanted to know more about my genetic history, like why I was removed from my biological family, and if there were any medical issues I should be aware of. Honestly, I didn't expect to find anyone closely related to me, so it felt like a low-stakes way to get some answers. About 8 weeks after sending off the kit, I remembered to check the results, and to my surprise, I matched with my biological mother, BM. She had sent me a message saying she was overjoyed that I had done the test and that she desperately wanted to reconnect with me and the rest of my biological family. She mentioned that she's thought of me every day, that I was always loved, and even that I have a biological little brother who is very excited to meet me, something I didn't even know. Her message was really emotional and, to be honest, overwhelming. To me, she's a complete stranger, and reading those words didn't stir anything in me other than discomfort. I spent a lot of time crafting a thoughtful response to BM, explaining that while I appreciated her message, I wasn't interested in forming a relationship with her or any of my biological family. I made it clear that my reason for doing the DNA test was purely informational. I wanted to understand my past, maybe get some medical history, and learn why I was removed, but that was it. I apologized if my actions gave her the wrong impression. BM read my message and replied, saying that she'd be willing to give me all the information I wanted, but only if I agreed to meet her at a cafe to discuss our relationship further. I refused, telling her that I wasn't comfortable with an IRL meeting. I offered a phone call as a compromise but emphasized that I just wanted the information and then for both of us to move on with our lives. She outright refused to provide any information unless I agreed to meet with her in person and discuss our relationship. I talked to my best friend about this, and she sided with BM, saying that I was being unfair. She argued that by signing up for the DNA site, I had essentially opened the door to this kind of situation and that refusing to meet with BM now is like playing mind games and leading them on.
Story 3.
I'm 40F, and I have 6 sisters. My 2 older sisters are 44 and 47, and my 4 younger sisters are 38, 36, 34, and 32. We've always been a close-knit family, and for the past decade, I've taken on the responsibility of hosting Thanksgiving at my house. I enjoy having everyone over, but it's a lot of work, especially since we all have at least 2 kids each, all in the age group 5 to 15. It's chaos, but joyful chaos. My husband helps out, but the majority of the planning, cooking, and organizing falls on me. This year, I decided I need a break. Life has been hectic, and I'm feeling burnt out. Between work, taking care of my kids 10-11M, and other responsibilities, I'm just not up for the task of hosting a big family gathering. So, I suggested that one of my sisters take over hosting Thanksgiving this year. I brought this up in our family group chat, thinking it would be a reasonable request and it's plenty ahead of time. However, my 2 older sisters, Sarah, 47, and Emily, 44, were not happy with the idea. Sarah has a busy job and a smaller house, so she feels she can't accommodate everyone comfortably. Emily argued that she's been dealing with a lot of stress lately and doesn't have the energy to host. They both suggested that since I've been doing it for so long, I should just keep the tradition going, especially since my house is the most spacious and I'm the one who knows how to do it right. My younger sisters were more understanding, but they also hesitated to take on the responsibility. My sister Jessica, 38, said she would be willing to help out more with the preparations if I hosted, but she wasn't confident about hosting the entire event herself. The other younger sisters offered similar compromises, but no one was willing to take on the full load. After some back and forth, I stood firm and said I really need someone else to host this year. I suggested we could even make it a potluck to ease the burden, but Sarah and Emily were still upset. They accused me of being selfish and abandoning a family tradition that I've upheld for years. They argued that I'm the one with the most experience, and that Thanksgiving just wouldn't be the same if I didn't host. Now, there's tension in the family, with my older sisters feeling like I'm letting them down. I feel like I've done my fair share over the years, and it's not unreasonable to ask for a break. But at the same time, I understand that my older sisters are also under a lot of pressure, and that hosting Thanksgiving is a big deal for our family. ETA the second oldest, Emily, handles Christmas. So I feel like it's totally fair that she not want to do both. She does not cook though, she hires a catering company, but it's still a lot to take on regardless. So, AITA for refusing to host Thanksgiving this year after doing it for the past decade?
Story 4.
AITA for not letting my BF grieve? Backstory, my boyfriend's grandpa passed away 4 days ago. When he passed we met all of his family at a small ER to say our goodbyes. The ER made everyone wear masks, due to a sickness going around the hospital. So 2 days ago I started to feel really bad body aches, sore throat etc. Keep in mind I'm 18 weeks pregnant. I told him how I felt and he basically said he doesn't want to get sick because his grandpa's funeral is coming up. I told him I was feeling weak as well as hungry and didn't want to drive myself home then be hungry once I got there. I asked him if he was okay with helping me for the night and I'll leave in the morning. Basically just bring me some food to the room so I wouldn't contaminate any other areas of the house. He told me he had a lot on his mind and wasn't in the right headspace to help me. So I told him I understand and left. When I got home I made something small to eat then went to sleep. Yesterday morning he calls and checks on me. I tell him how I feel more sick than when I left. He just says okay. The rest of the day he has family over until about 3 a.m. just offering their condolences and keeping his family company. Around 4 p.m. I called and asked him for help to see if he could bring me something to eat because all I had the strength to get myself were just snacks like chips, cereal. No real meals and I wanted to make sure I had enough in me for the baby. He basically brushed me off saying he has no idea how he could help and said I was selfish for not thinking about him grieving and how he was stressed and had a million things on his mind. He also told me that I was being evil because I said he wasn't helping me at all. After that I just hung up. He called me at 3 a.m. when everyone left to sleep on the phone with me but hung up 20 minutes later, said he would call back but didn't. Now I don't want to speak to him at all. But don't want to cause him more stress when he's already sad about his grandpa. I want to know if I'm an A for not respecting his time for grieving. Also, would I be an A for not talking to him today? I know how it feels to lose your grandpa when you're so close with him. But at the same time I just asked for a little bit of help and don't feel like I was asking him for a lot. Most medications you can't take during pregnancy because they have bad side effects for the fetus. So I've just been waiting it out and he knows that as well. Update, it's been decided I am the A here and that is fine. But for the ones wondering about DoorDash and other options. I recently just paid my bills and I made groceries for his place since I would be there with him during this time. So unfortunately I cannot afford DoorDash at the moment, but that would have been my first option. I didn't bring any food with me because all of the groceries really have to be cooked besides snacks. Also, I know he is grieving and would have never said anything, but if he was okay enough to do favors for others yesterday, he could have picked up some food and left it at my doorstep. Didn't even have to come inside. Also, I have family and friends, but getting them to do things for me is a bit of a challenge, and I learned a while ago to stop asking. It's really just been me and him caring for one another. But after reading some of your comments, I understand how I came off as needy. Thank you for your responses. Brown skin, brown skin. Edit, I speak to my family every day, we are close in that way. I see them every week as well. No bad blood between us. My friends don't live close to me to where it's easy to just drop off food and go. My parents on the other hand do. But now that I'm an adult and since my other siblings have had children, my parents tend to them. I have 2 siblings who aren't in their kids' lives ATM due to their own faults, so my parents step in. When I ask for help where they have to physically do something, since I was a kid it was always I'm tired this or I do feel like going here that. But when they ask me they feel like I'm just supposed to do whatever it is they ask. So I never call on them first. I call on my boyfriend, we've been together 3 years.